Chulin Daf Daled. We're going to start on Daf Yomi Page on the bottom, 3 lines from the bottom. Tanu Rabbanan. Shchitas kusi muteres. We learn in the Brisa that a shchitas kusi, the slaughtering of a kusi, is muter. We talked about the kusim yesterday in the previous daf. Kusim were a nation that were megayer after Sancheiriv brought them to Eretz Yisrael. And this Brisa obviously holds that the conversion of the kusim was legitimate, and therefore their slaughtering is okay. Bamed dvarim amurim. The Brisa is going to qualify its previous statement and say that that's only true because Yisrael oimid al gabav. When Yisrael is standing on top of the kusi, supervising the shchita. Aval bo mtza'o sheshachat. However, if you came and found a kusi that he had shechted an animal, choytach kazayis, the way to know if it's kosher, you cut off an olive amount of meat, v'naisanla, you give it to the kusi, achlo, if he eats it, mutar lechol mishchitaso, then you can rely on that the shchita was okay. V'imlav asur lechol mishchitaso, if not, you cannot eat from his slaughtering. Kayotzebo, similarly, matzah beyado dekur yishal tziporim, if you found in his hand, if a kusi has a basket, Tosfos says the kurya means a basket of tziporim, or Rashi explains that it's talking about when you threaded a string through a bunch of birds, so you have like a chain of birds. So what do you do if you want to know if it's kosher? Also, you cut off one of the heads of the birds, and you give it to the kusi. So if the kusi eats from it, then you're permitted to eat from his slaughtering. If not, you cannot eat from his shchita. Again, so we explained this yesterday already. The point is that they do care about shchita. They do not eat things that aren't slaughtered. However, you cannot rely on them that they will not feed you unkosher animals. They don't care about making someone else not eat kosher. All they care is about themselves eating not kosher. So if you test them by them eating it, so then it's okay. Abaye, we said yesterday that Abaye held that if you, a Yisrael, is Yotzev Nichnas, is coming in and out while a kusi is shechting, that's not enough supervision. Even though he might be scared that you might walk in on him while he shechts, and therefore he'll shecht correctly, still that's not enough. So Abaye inferred this from the beginning of the Brisa, Meiresha. Abaye diak Meiresha. Rava diak Miseifa. Rava inferred this from the end of this Brisa. The Gemara is going to explain how. Abaye diak Meiresha. Abaye inferred this from the beginning of the Brisa. Time of the Yisrael oimid al gabav. The reason why it's okay for it to be done lechatchila, according to Abaye, according to the Brisa, is because Yisrael oimid al gabav. Yisrael is actually supervising the shchita aval yotzev v'nichnas. But anything less than that, anything less than direct supervision of a Yisrael, meaning if he's yotzev v'nichnas, if all he's doing is coming in and out, then loy. Abaye says, you see from the Brisa that in order to be kosher lechatchila, he has to actually be supervising it, not just coming in and out. Rava diak Miseifa. Rava infers his own opinion from the end of the Brisa. The only time you have to actually test the kusi is only if you weren't there before. You came for the first time and found him that he shechted, and then you have to test him. Aval yotzev v'nichnas. However, if you were already coming in and out, shaper dummy, then it's fine. Meaning, the only time you have to test him is if you came for the first time. But if you were there already coming in and out, that's not what the Brisa is talking about. And then you can you can rely on him lechatchila. Well, Abaye kasha seifa. What is Abaye going to do with the seifa? The seifa is going to be difficult according to Abaye. Amarlach yotzev v'nichnas nami bo umtzao karilei. He says when the Brisa says bo umtzao, that's the same exact thing as that includes yotzev v'nichnas. When the Brisa says bo umtzao, it doesn't mean to say only if that you were never there before. No, it means that you were there before also, and you're yotzev v'nichnas, and still, even though you're yotzev v'nichnas, you have to test him. Ul Rava, and according to Rava, Ul Rava kashi reisha. When Abaye inferred from the ratio would be a question according to Rava. Amar Lach, he says no. You don't have to have direct supervision. Yoitzev nichnas nami ki oimin al gabav dami. Coming in and out is also included in oimin al gabav. When it says oimin al gabav, it doesn't mean he has to actually constantly be standing and supervising. It includes even a case of him coming in and out. Now the Gemara continues to explain the rest of the brayso. If you found a bunch of birds in your hand, in the kusi's hand, then you can test him by cutting off one of the heads and giving it to him. Asks the Gemara, how is that enough of a test to see if all the birds are kosher? We should be suspicious. Maybe the one you actually cut, the one you gave it to him, that's the one that he shechted okay, and that's why the kusi ate it. But maybe the rest of them aren't good. Rav Menashe says, Siman machnis izmel bezcharim. Usually the simonim that are in the parentheses in the Gemara are telling us the different terutzim that are coming up, or the different statements that are actually coming up. Over here, Taisus explains these simonim are just signs of what Rav Menashe is going to be saying in the Masechta. They're not here, they're further on. Machnis izmel bezcharim, but the 3 times Rav Menashe actually states something in Masechta Chulin. Either way, Rav Menashe answers this question: how can you rely on the kusi tasting only one of the birds and say from there that all the rest of them are also kosher? It says Rav Menashe b'machnisan tachas knofov. You hid the birds, you hid the basket, or you hid the thread of birds, and you stuck it under your clothing, and therefore he did not know which one you took out. And from the fact that he ate one at random, must be all of them were kosher. Says the Gemara, V'dilma simona havale begavei. Maybe the kusi was able to recognize and identify the bird that you gave it to him as a kosher one because he had some type of siman, some type of symbol on the actual bird that he remembered, and he was able to identify the bird. Amar of Misharshia, okay, so Misharshia says, D'memasle mismuse. You take and you smash it and crush the bird so that any identifiable sign that would have been on the bird is now unidentifiable because it's crushed. And now it's one big mush, and therefore the kusi, if he eats it, he knows that not only one bird was okay, all the birds are okay. Asks the Gemara, V'dilma kasavri kusim ein shchita life min ha-Torah. Asks the Gemara like this: we know that the kusim can read in the Torah that v'zovachta, it says the words v'zovachta mi b'karcha mitzoincha. The Torah says, the Torah wants you to slaughter your bakar and tzayin, which are animals. But the Torah never says that you have to shecht a bird. Who said slaughtering applies to birds? That doesn't say explicitly in the Torah. On the contrary, by karbanos, we see even there's a concept of meliko, where the Kohen just rips off the head of the bird. So maybe the kusim only go with the text, only go with what the Torah says. And therefore, they hold that there's no shchita for a bird, and therefore how can you rely on them if he's eating the bird that he shechted it? Maybe they don't agree that there's shchita at all for a bird. Says the Gemara, ul ta'amech shehia drasa chalada hagrama ve'ikur miksivan. The main psulim of shchita are also not written explicitly in the verse, and therefore even for a bakar vatzayin, even for an animal, how could you rely on a kusi? Maybe they don't hold of these psulim. Again, shehiyah means if you paused during the shechita. Drasa means if you chopped the esophagus or the food pipe or the windpipe without slicing it. You just chopped it. Chalada means if the knife was hidden, if the knife was concealed during the shechita process. Hagrama means if you shechted outside of the place that you're supposed to shecht, meaning too high up in the neck, too low down in the neck. The ikur means if the windpipe or food pipe were dislocated while you shechted. These are the regular psulim, and again, these miksivan, are these said? These are not said explicitly in the Torah, and therefore, how could you rely on them? Ela kevendach zikabuhu must be, what do we say? We say kevendach zikabuhu, since we know that they actually hold of these halachas. So now they hold of it, and we have a presumption that we can rely on them because they actually do it. Also over here, it's not about whether it's written in the Torah or not. It's all about whether we know that they keep to this. And since they keep to this, so we have a presumption in place and we can rely on them. Not just regarding the psulim of shchita, but also regarding oif. So it's not because it's not because it's said in the Torah, it's because we know that they are machzik. The Gemara continues to discuss kusim now. Ve'achzuk lo achzuk b'delo ksiva tanoihi. Says the Gemara, when something is not said explicitly in the verse, and whether we do rely on them or not rely on them, when something is not said on the verse, is not said explicitly in the Torah, whether we can rely on them because they actually keep to it or not, is actually a machlokes tanoim. Titania, matzahs kusi, the matzah of a kusi, muteres, you're allowed to eat it, meaning it's not chometz v'adam yotze b'yidei chavasa b'Pesach, and you can fulfill your obligation of eating matzah on the first night of Pesach. That's the Tanna Kama. Rabbi Elazar Oyster. Rabbi Elazar says no, you cannot rely on them. They are not baki, they are not familiar with the particulars of the mitzvahs like Israel. So Rabbi Elazar holds you, it's asr, can't eat it, it's chametz. Rashba Gomer, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, kol mitzvah shechziku b'kusim harbe medakting b'yosim Yisrael. Any mitzvah that the kusim hold on to, harbe medakting ba, they are very particular, even yosim Yisrael. They're very particular in the mitzvah, even more than Yisrael. So the Gemara is going to go through the different opinions. Amar Mar, matzahs kusi muteres. We said the Tanna Kama says that a matzah of a kusi is permitted. It's not chometz v'adam yotze b'dei chavasa b'Pesach, and a person fulfills his obligation of eating matzah on Pesach. Pshita, says the Gemara, once you tell me that it's not chometz, so of course you're able to fulfill your obligation of eating matzah. Says the Gemara, no, I would think lo b'ki b'shimur. On the first night of Pesach, there's a mitzvah to eat a kazayis of matzah, but it's not enough for matzah just not to be chometz. There's actually a mitzvah that there's a halacha that it has to be mishumar l'shem matzah, l'shem mitzvah, which means that the wheat that you're making the matzah from, and by the process of making matzah, you have to watch it that it doesn't become chametz. And you can't just make sure it doesn't, even if you know it's not chametz, it's not enough. There's a mitzvah that it actually has to be watched with the intent of this being a mitzvah. And therefore, we don't know if the kusim know about this halacha. Maybe they know not to make things chametz. But who said that they do matzah shmura, that they actually watch it l'shem mitzvah? Therefore, we don't know if they do that, and therefore I would think maybe it's not chametz, but maybe still I can't fulfill my obligation. Therefore, the Tanna Kama says no, both not chametz, it's mutter, and also adam yoytze bo yidei chayvase b'Pesach. The next opinion is Rabbi Elazar Oyser, nefisha ein b'kiyim b'dikdukim mitzvah. Rabbi Elazar holds kasavar lo b'ki b'shimur. They do not know about shimur. Rashi takes out the gears to lo b'ki b'shimur. The discussion would be whether Rabbi Elazar holds that it's chametz, or that just that you're not yotze the first night of Pesach. Rashba Gomer, the next sheet is Rav Shimon Gamliel, kol mitzvah shechziku b'kusim harbe medakting b'yoser min Yisrael. Rashba said that any mitzvah that the kusim hold by, they are very particular about it, even more than us. Says the Gemara, Hainu Tanna Kama, what's the difference between Rashba and the Tanna Kama? Both the Rashba and the Tanna Kama say that you're allowed to eat the matzah, right? They both say that you can rely on them. Says the Gemara, the difference between the Tanna Kama and Rashbag is if something is written, but we don't know, we don't have prior knowledge to presume that they actually hold by it. Tanna Kama says, since something is written in the Torah, even though we do not know that they actually hold by it, you can rely on it. Rashbag Sovar, even if something is written, you have to know that they actually hold by it. If they do not hold, if you do not know that they hold by it, not. Says the Gemara, if so, that this is the dispute between Rashbag and the Tanna Kama, kol mitzvah shechziku b'kusim. Why does Rashbag say kol mitzvah, any mitzvah shechziku b'kusim? Im echziku mi bayalei. He should say because he's narrowing down from the Tanna Kama. The Tanna Kama says anything that's written in the Torah, you can rely that the Kusim are particular about. And Rashbag is saying, he's narrowing it down. He says, no, only if they are muhsak in it, only if you know that they hold by it. So Rashbag shouldn't say the term kol, which means to include more, anything. No, he should say, to qualify the statement of the Tanna Kama, he should say the word im, only if they actually hold by it. And it says, must be, the dispute is not what we just said. The dispute is the loik siva, the achzikuba. The question is about something that's not written in the Torah. If it's written in the Torah, then everyone agrees that you can rely on the kusi. The question is if it's not written in the Torah, and they do rely on it. Tanna Kama sovar kevan deloik siva. Tanna Kama says, since it's not written, afal gav da'achzikuba namila. Even though you know they hold by it, still you can't rely on them. Because really we only rely on them by things that are written explicitly in the Torah. Rashbag sovar, Rashbag says, no. Kevan da'achzuk, anything that we know that they hold by, we can rely on even though it's not said in the Torah. Okay, Gufa. Amar Rava. We're going to go back to Rava's statement on Gimel Amar Aleph that said that Yisrael Mumar, Yisrael who transgresses Averos, you can rely on him by checking the knife first. Says the Gemara, Gufa. Amar Rava, Yisrael Mumar Oichel Nevelis L'tei Oven. If you have a Yisrael who's a mumar, which means that he ignores certain mitzvahs. Oichel nevelas, and he eats nevelas, litei oven, for his appetite. He does it for his appetite. Then boidek sakin, you can check the knife, and you give it to him. Then you can rely on the shchita. My taima, what's the reason? How come you can rely on him? Says the Gemara, since he has in front of hetera, and he has isura, he has both options. Because he has both options, he's not going to specifically leave the heter. He's not going to, on purpose, leave heter v'achal isura and eat isura. Only when it's convenient. Ihachi kiloi bodak nami, says the Gemara, even if you didn't check the knife, if he won't leave heter, meaning he will decidedly eat kosher. So then why do you have to check the knife? Says the Gemara, mitrach leitarach. He's not going to go so far and inconvenience himself to find a kosher knife. Meaning, if you don't check the knife and the knife is bad, he'll use that knife. But if you check the knife and the knife is good, so then he won't mess up the shchita on purpose because he has in his hand, he has the possibility of making it kosher, so he would never specifically make it not kosher, and therefore you could rely on it. Amrulei Rabbanan leRava. The Rabbanan tell Rava, Tanya de Misayeh alach. We have a brisa that proves your point. The brisa says, if you have the chametz of someone who's an over avera, someone who did not sell his chametz on Pesach, that means he had chametz over Pesach. Achara Pesach, after Pesach, muter miyad. You're allowed to eat from it right away. Meaning this is really chametz she'avar lava Pesach. Chametz that belonged to a Jew during Pesach, you're not allowed to eat. But still we say that if an over avera, someone who did not sell his chametz and has chametz over Pesach, still you are allowed to take chametz from him right after Pesach. How come? Isn't it considered chametz she'avar lava Pesach? Says the Gemara, no, mipnei she'ein machlifin. Because they switch it. They go to their neighbor, the guy, and say, I have chametz over Pesach, and can I switch with your chametz? So now you can rely that they switched it with the guy, and it's not the Jew's chametz that he had over Pesach, because he switched it with the guy. Savrua, we think, Hamani, that the Tana of this price is Rabbi Yehuda. The Amar chametz achara Pesach. He says, Rabbi Yehuda holds that chametz after Pesach is daraisa. Chametz she'avar aleva Pesach, that belong to a Jew over Pesach, you're prohibited from eating it midaraisa. Uktani, and it says mipnei she'en machlifin, and you see that you can rely on a Jew that's over averis, a Jew that does not care about chametz, and over Pesach he was eating chametz, but after Pesach, you can rely that he switches it. Al malay shavik heter, you see that he does not leave the possibility of heter, and specifically achil isura. Why? Because on Pesach he wanted to eat chametz, so he ate chametz. But after Pesach, there's a very easy way to get rid of your chametz of Pesach and make it okay. You switch it with your neighbor, the guy's chametz. And therefore you see that you can rely that you rely that he would rather eat heter and not iser. And if it's easy, then he'll do it. Says the Gemara, Mimai, Dilma Reb Shimoni. No, maybe this brisa is not going to Reb Yehuda, it's going to Reb Shimon. Damar chametz archa Pesach is only d'Rabbanan. Chametz archa Pesach is only d'Rabbanan. V'chi makalinan, and when are we lenient and we rely that even a Jew who's over Averis would not want to transgress? That's only by d'Rabbanan. But b'doraisa, but by shchita, for example, that's a d'oraisa, loy mekalinan, we will not be lenient to rely on a Yisrael mumur that he shechted correctly, even if you check the knife. Says the Gemara, no, v'tihavin amri Reb Shimon, even if it's Reb Shimon, mikatoni she'ani omer chlifu. Do we say, does the brisa say she'ani omer chlifu, which would mean to imply that we let you take the chance that the Yisrael mumur was machlef, that he exchanged his chametz with the guy? It doesn't say that. It says mipnei shemachlifin. The brisa says confidently that we know that they switch it. Devada machlifin, that they do for sure switch it. Uma b'derabanan leishavik heter. If even according to Reb Shimon, that chametz she'av la'pesach is derabanan leishavik heter v'achal isura, the Yisrael who's over averis would not leave heter, meaning he would make sure his food is mutter and rather not ochel yisura. B'dorais lakolshkan, if even by the Rabbanan Yisrael mumur wants to make sure that he's eating kosher, if it's convenient, so then for sure by a doraisa we can rely on him that he'll shecht correctly. Says the Gemara, we'll bring another proof to Rava. Hakol shoichtin. Says the brisa, anyone can shecht, va'afilu kusi, even a kusi, va'afilu orel, even if someone who is uncircumcised, va'afilu Yisrael mumur, even a Yisrael mumur. Asks the Gemara, hay orel hechidami. When the brisa says that even an uncircumcised Jew can slaughter, what type are we talking about? If we mean that the reason why he's uncircumcised is because his brothers died due to their circumcision, and if if a person has brothers who dies due to circumcision, so we assume that there's some type of genetic issue with the family, and the next brother we do not circumcise because he might die also. So if that's why he's not circumcised, so then how Yisrael Ma'al Yehu, there's nothing wrong with him. Nothing's held against him. The halacha says that he should not get circumcised because he might die. So why is that at all a chiddush in the brisa? Why is the brisa teaching me that? That's simple. Ella, the Gemara says, Ella Pshita, simply what's going on here is that we're talking about a mumur la'arelus. We're talking about someone who could circumcise himself and it'll be 100% healthy. It's just that he ignores this mitzvah, which means that he is an over avera regarding the mitzvah of milah. And you see what the brisa holds, kasavar mumur l'davar echad lo yhavei mumur l'chol ha'torah kula. And the brisa holds that even though he ignores one mitzvah, still he's not considered a mumur l'chol ha'torah kula, meaning someone who's a mumur l'chol ha'torah kula who transgresses every mitzvah in the Torah and doesn't care about the Torah, any of the mitzvahs, so then for sure we say he can't shecht. But someone who only ignores one mitzvah, he's an apostate only regarding one prohibition, meaning the prohibition of milah, then we can rely on him and say it's fine, because it's only one mitzvah that he ignores, we can rely on him for shechita. And then Ema Seifa. What is the Seifa? Continues the Gemara to explain the rest of the brisa. Vafilu Yisrael mumur, when the brisa continues and says even a Yisrael mumur, what are we talking about? Hai mumur, hey chidami. If he's a mumar for one thing, for one other thing other than shchita, it's the same thing as mumar la'arelos. There's no specific reason why someone who ignores the mitzvah of milah should be different than anyone who ignores a different mitzvah. So therefore, that's all included in mumar la'arelos. So when the Brisa says an additional case of Yisrael mumar, what's it talking about? Helolav mumar la'isadavar. What's going on here is that this mumar is someone who actually eats not kosher animals. He's a mumar regarding shchita. He doesn't care about shchita necessarily, and therefore, that's more of a chiddush to say that a mumar who does not care about shchita, you can still rely on him. Meaning, if he just cares about something, if he just ignores the mitzvah of milah, that has nothing to do with shchita, maybe we could rely on shchita. But if he himself eats not kosher animals, who said we can rely on him? Therefore the Brisa says, no, you can still rely on him. And you see like Rava. Uchde Rava. And you see like Rava, that even a Yisrael mumar who would eat not kosher animals, you can rely on him if it's easy, if you check the night for him. Says the Gemara, loy. Loy lamei malach, mumar loy sadavar loy. Maybe I would tell you, no, not like Rava. And if he's a mumar, if he's an apostate, loy sadavar, for this thing meaning slaughtering, loy, then you can't rely on him. My time. Okay, even the doshbe, since he has already threshed in this area, meaning he already ate not kosher animals. He's not particular about eating kosher. So keheter dami, to him, it's like it's totally permissible, and therefore you can't rely on him. Ella, what are we discussing? Mumar la'avodas kechavim. We're talking about an apostate regarding idolatry, which means that he keeps most of the mitzvahs. He keeps all the mitzvahs except for idolatry. Uchter of Anan, like Rav Anan, the Amar of Anan, Rav Anan said, Amar Shmuel, the name of Shmuel, Yisrael mumar la'avodas kechavim. If you have a Jew who is an apostate regarding avodas kechavim, muter lechol mishchitasai, then you're allowed to eat his shchita. And the chiddush is, obviously, that since avodas kechavim is so contrary to the entire idea of Judaism, because it's kikaifer b'chol haTorah kula, it's like you're denying the entire existence of God because you're worshipping idols. So therefore, the Brisa says, but it's fine. If all he's doing is avodah zarah, then it's fine. You can rely that his shchita is still okay. But Rava might still, the Brisa will not necessarily agree with Rava, because that case is the case where he himself eats not kosher, and therefore we can't rely on him regarding the actual prohibition that he ignores. Gufa. The Gemara is now going to dissect Rab Anan's statement. Amar Rab Anan, Amar Shmuel, Yisrael mumar la'avodas kechavim. If you have Yisrael who is an idolater, he's an apostate regarding avodas kechavim, which means he ignores the avera of idolatry. Mutar lechol mishchitasai. You're allowed to eat his shchita. How do we know this? What is the source to say such a thing, that you can rely on a Jew even though he's an idolater? Because we find that Yehoshaphat, the king of Yehuda, he enjoyed a meal by Achav. Achav was the king of he was a Melech Yisrael, not a Melech Yehuda. Yehoshaphat was Melech Yehuda, Achav was a Melech Yisrael. And Yehoshaphat came to Achav, and he ate by Achav. And Achav was an idolater. Shenemar, vayizbach loy Achav tzaynu bakar l'roiv. Achav slaughtered for Yehoshaphat sheep and cattle, l'roiv, a lot. V'la'am asher imay, and to the nation that came with Yehoshaphat, vaysitehu la'alos el Ramos Gilad. And he tried convincing him to come up to Ramos Gilad. So you see that Achav, who was an idolater, slaughtered, and Yehoshaphat ate. So you see, even though you have someone who's an idolater, you're allowed to eat from his shchita. Says the Gemara, Dilma Mizbach Zavach, maybe Achav slaughtered, but Meichal loy ochal. But Yehoshaphat didn't eat, meaning all it says is that Achav slaughtered. Who said Yehoshaphat actually participated in the meal? Says the Gemara, Vaisitei. What do you mean? It says that he convinced him to come along with him. So you see that he convinced him to eat. Says the Gemara, V'dilma b'dvarim. No. Maybe the convincing, the word Vaisitei, is saying only b'dvarim. meaning he convinced him with words, not that he convinced him to eat. Gemara says, Ein hasata b'dvar. No, hasata, when you say that someone gets you to do something through convincing, through persuasion, it doesn't mean with words. It doesn't mean just for words. Doesn't it say that if you have someone who, the Torah talks about a Jew who tries convincing people to avodah zarah, does that not mean with words? Gemara says no. That also means with eating and drinking. In Eoiv, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells the Satan that you wanted me to test Eov, and you persuaded me to try to punish Eov for nothing, because Eov passed the test. But you see either way that the Vatasiteni boy means with words, because the Satan persuaded HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way the story is depicted in Eov, the Satan persuaded HaKadosh Baruch Hu to test Eov. He persuaded him with words, not with eating and drinking. So you see that this persuasion with the word hasata could mean just with the words, without eating. Says the Gemara, limala shiny. No, obviously when we're discussing what happens in heaven, at the beginning of Eov, it's discussing the conversation between God and his angels. So obviously we're not going to be discussing eating and drinking, because God, of course, does not eat and drink. But regularly it would mean eating and drinking. It says the Gemara, V'dilma mishtashas ashti, maybe Yehoshaphat only drank, but he didn't eat. So therefore, again, you don't have a proof yet that you can eat from a Jew who is an idolater. It says the Gemara, Ma'ishna shtia. What's the difference between drinking and eating? For drinking, you're saying, oh, that's fine for Yehoshaphat to drink, because a mumar lavaydis kechavim, a Jew who is an idolater, is not considered a mumar regarding the entire Torah, meaning that you can rely on him, that he'll serve you kosher. If regarding his wine you trust him, so achila nami mumar lavaydis kechavim lo yavim mumar l'chol kula. If you're trying to tell me that the reason why he was able to rely on Achav's wine is because the fact that he's an idolater doesn't make his wine not kosher, so then the same thing would be true by meat. And therefore the fact that he only, if you want to tell me that he only drank, that doesn't help us. The Gemara says, no, that's not true. Shtia stam yenamhu. When he drank the wine, it's only considered stam yenam, because we didn't know that Achav actually, and therefore the yain becomes aser. It's only stam yain. It's plain wine that we just don't know. And even though today we have a prohibition for plain wine, for stam yenon, adayin lo nesar, it hasn't been made prohibited yet. Stam yenon shalvaris kechavim. The plain wine of the idolaters had not been made prohibited yet. Aval achila emalach, but for eating, because we obviously this had to be shechted, I would tell you that maybe really mumar lavaydis kechavim is like a mumar l'chol Torah kula. Maybe if the person transgresses his idolatry, it's considered like he transgresses the entire Torah, and you can't rely on him at all. You can't rely on his shchita. Says the Gemara, Iba yisema lav urcha de malka. Either I'll tell you that it's not the way of a king mishtiya b'loy michla, to drink without eating. So don't tell me that he just drank. No, it must be he also eat it. Iba yisema vayizbach vaysiteyu. The pasuk says vayizbach vaysiteyu. It's right next to each other, so it sounds like that. Within the same verse, it says the word vayizbach and it says the word vaysiteyu, and they're right next to each other. So it sounds like that the actual persuasion was to eat, with eating, not just with words. Bamei sitay, with what did he persuade him? Bizvicha, with slaughtering. The Dilma asks the Gemara, Dilma ivad yozavach. Maybe Ovadia was a prophet in the time of Achav, and maybe he was the one who slaughtered, and therefore Yehoshaphat ate it, not because Ovadia slaughtered it, not Achav. And Ovadia was not an idolater, and therefore he was allowed to eat it. But really, maybe that if Achav would have shechted it, Yehoshaphat would not have eaten it because he was an idolater. Says the Gemara L'Roiv Ksiv. No, it says it was much. There was a lot of animals, and therefore Ovadia lo have a suffix. It wouldn't have been enough. Ovadia couldn't have shechted everything. Says the Gemara, V'dilma shivas alafim zavuach. Maybe the 7,000 people were the one who slaughtered it. Ksiv, Bisharti b'Yisrael shivas alafim, and I will leave in Israel shivas alafim 7,000 people. Kol haberkaim, all the knees asher lo karo labal, that did not bow down to the avodah zarah, to the Baal. So you see that there were 7,000 people that were not of the avodah zarah, and therefore maybe of those 7,000 people, they were the ones who slaughtered the animals, and therefore Yehoshaphat was allowed to eat it. Gemara says no, it couldn't have been them because Tmuri havim mitamri. They were hiding from Izevel, so they wouldn't have been the ones who slaughtered it. Says the Gemara, okay, maybe Achav was an idolater, but his nation, the people under him were okay. They were good people. They were not idolaters. Says the Gemara, can't be. Diksiv, Moishel Makshiv al Dover Sheker. If you have a ruler who listens to lies, Kol Mishar Savrishayim. All his servants are also considered evil people, which means that the king reflects his subjects, and therefore, even if you want to tell me that it was only they who shechted, but still they're considered Rishayim, because Achav was a Rasha, he was an idolater, must be also all his subjects were also idolaters, and therefore still they couldn't shecht. V'dilma Gavri Dio Shafat Nami lo avamalu. And maybe the people of Yehoshaphat also were not okay. Zavuach Gavri de Achav, Ochel Gavri de Yehoshaphat. Maybe the people of Achav shechted for the people of Yehoshaphat, meaning maybe the people. So we must say that Achav was an idolater. That we know, and must be because the leader was an idolater. Must be all his subjects were also an idolater. Maybe the people of Yehoshaphat's subjects, his servants, were also not good people, and therefore the many animals that had to be shechted for Yehoshaphat's entire entourage, that was shechted by Achav's people, even though they were idolaters. But the subjects of Yehoshaphat didn't care because they were also idolaters. They didn't care. And so Dilma, says the Gemara, Gavri di Yehoshaphat nami lo havamalu. Maybe the people of Yehoshaphat also were not good people. Zavuach Gavri de Achav, the people of Achav shechted, Ochel Gavri de Yehoshaphat. And the men of Yehoshaphat, they ate from what the men of Achav shechted. And what did Yehoshaphat himself eat? Yehoshaphat was a tzaddik. What did he eat? Zavuach Ovadia shechted for him. And then Ochel Yehoshaphat. And Yehoshaphat ate that. So we took care of the problem of Ovadia shechting for so many. No, Ovadia did not shecht for anyone except for the king. He only had to shecht one animal. The rest of the multiple korbanos, the multiple slaughterings that happened on that day were by other people. Says the Gemara, you can't say that. Just like we just said that when a ruler listens to lies, meaning when a ruler is evil, all his servants are also considered evil. So the same parallel must be true for good. That if a king is considered good, Yehoshaphat was a tzaddik and he was good and he would not eat something not kosher. So then also Haladvar emes, if you have a ruler a king who listens to only true things, so then we have to say that the parallel is true, and Mesharsav are tzaddikim, and his servants must be tzaddikim. And therefore, the servants of Yehoshaphat also had to eat kosher, and therefore you can't answer it by saying Ovadia just shechted one animal. Says the Gemara, V'dilma zavuach Gavri de Achav. Maybe the men of Achav shechted and Ochel Achav v'Gavrein, they shechted for themselves, Zavuach Gavri de Yehoshaphat, Ochal Yehoshaphat v'Gavri. The people of Yehoshaphat, the men of Yehoshaphat, shechted for themselves, and Yehoshaphat and his men ate it. Meaning, maybe Yehoshaphat and his men were able to eat, even though Achav and his men were Ovdei Avodah Zarah, idolaters. Why were they allowed to eat? Because they shechted for themselves. They did not rely on Achav or his men's shechita, because they shechted on their own. The Gemara says, Lo ave maflig nafshe mineh. He wouldn't have separated himself so much from Achav to say, I don't eat from you. And how do we know this? Because it says, Kamani kamaycha. Yehoshaphat tells Achav, I'm just like you. Kamani kamaycha, ke'ami kamecha, my nation is your nation. So you see that they were chummy together, they were buddies. And therefore he wouldn't have separated himself. The Gemara says, Elameata, the next part of the pasuk is kisusai kisusecha. So too, because he says kamani kamay, because the pasuk says kisusai kisusecha. Does that mean also that because my horses are like your horses, therefore that means that even regarding kashrus, even regarding halacha, we're also considered one? No, maybe I don't trust you at all. And all kamani kamaycha ke'ami kamecha means politically. And just like kisusai kisusecha has nothing to do with kosher. If just from kamani kamaycha kami kamecha you could say, oh yeah, he means that regarding religious things and iser veheter, they are like one. But once the pasuk says kisusai kisusecha, what do horses have anything to do with iser veheter? So therefore must be, it only means regarding the war that they wanted to fight. Ella, says the Gemara, what happens to your horses will happen to my horses, meaning regarding the war, a political thing. What happens to me and my nation, what happens to you and your nation will happen to me and my nation. So you see, you can't bring a proof from this pasuk that they were friendly together and that he would not have distanced himself from Achav's shechita. Says the Gemara, okay, I'll bring this pasuk. Melech Yisrael v'Yehoshaphat, Melech Yehuda. Both Achav and Yehoshaphat, Yoshvin Ish al Kisai, they were sitting, each one on his chair, Melubashim begadim, they were dressed in clothing, begorin, in a garin. What does the garin mean? Begarin Pesach Shar Shomron. Garin means a threshing floor. Pesach Shar Shomron. In the opening of the gate of Shomron. Says the Gemara, my garin. What does this mean that the king was, both the kings were sitting on a goren? Ilay goren mamish. If we're really talking about an actual goren, which means a threshing floor, atu shar shomron goren hava, was the gate of Shomron, was it a goren? That makes no sense that at the gate to a place there's a threshing floor. Ella ki goren. Doesn't mean an actual goren, it means like a goren. Ditnan. What do we mean? Sanhedrin hoisa, the Sanhedrin used to sit kachatzi goren, agula, like half of a circular goren. A goren was obviously, the threshing floors used to be circular, and therefore the Sanhedrin used to sit in half a circle, like so that they would be facing each other and be able to talk to each other. So that she would see each other. So too, from this pasuk we see the fact that Achav and Yehoshaphat sat together like a goren, which means that they wanted to see each other, which means that they sat like the Sanhedrin, and they would actually listen to each other, and they were considered one party, one group, which means that it must be that Yehoshaphat ate from Achav's meat, and he wouldn't have said, no, I don't rely on your shechita. And from the fact that Yehoshaphat ate from Achav's meat, we see that a Yisrael, let's say Mumar Lavaritz Kechavim, you can rely on his shechita. Ad kan daf dalid in Masechta Chulin.